if you can do join with your laptop. It will be an engaging section actually, and a lot of people have this mindset around SPSS and R, and we'll try to break it very down and very simplified in a way that people will think of becoming a research analyst even today. Yeah, I strongly believe that why I picked interest in research analytics was the simplicity of SPSS and even the simplicity of R. I know it gets complex as you go down, but I believe that with a little practice, a little exposure, we get perfect in these tools. But I strongly believe that SPSS is very good and user-friendly. R also, though complex, but can be very, very friendly. If you can, at least for the few persons that joined early, please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name is Okafo Innocent. I'm glad to be here from Nigeria.
My name is Dalbas from Iraq.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ikenna Ireka. I'm glad to be here from Nigeria.
Good evening, everyone. I am Itnayo from Nigeria.
Hey everyone, I'm Idoko Samuel. I'm joining from Nigeria.
Challenge that most people have when it comes to research analytics is that they feel that it's all about statistics and maths, which is actually part of it. And I think that's why people often run away from it. But I don't think it's an issue if we get the basics. If you followed our session for last year, you'll notice that we did mostly around our webinars, we are around research and the basic concepts in analysis and as well towards LinkedIn optimization. For this year, we came to the conclusion that it's actually good to expose people to these live sessions. This will actually trigger some persons to gain interest in research analytics, especially in these tools. Many people think that SPSS is outdated, but no matter how advanced other tools and keep coming out, we still strongly believe that SPSS has their place in not just academia, but also in business and in social sciences. So that we'll be talking a little on the theory, and then we'll engage more on some practical aspects. Now, SPSS is not open source like R and Python and Power BI as well to some extent, but that's why we aren't out to share the software, because we use a paid version. So, but if you want to get the software, I think there are many resources, many resource persons that do give out their paid code or so. Maybe you can reach out to them. Alternatively, there is a free trial. You can actually get 14 days free trial. We'll be introducing some concepts. So what is data all about? Okay, before we go into that, let's just, we said that this will be an interactive section. So before we go into the meaning of data, can someone just help us? What do you think data is? And then someone else, what do you think data analysis is? Someone briefly, just introduce yourself and then tell us what you think. No one is wrong, no one is correct. We are here to learn.
I am Ifnaya from Nigeria.
Okay, thank you.
So, in my own understanding, data is a raw fact or information. Then data analysis is now when you are evaluating the raw facts to produce information or, information, something like that, a processed data or processed facts.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
My name is Abdulrashid from Nigeria. I actually think data analysis is just extracting meaning from data. That is just the general knowledge, I think.
Sir, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, data is a collection of values that are used to get information regarding facts, quality, quantity, statistics, etc. Why data analysis is when you now get the data to make informed decision. Thank you.
Okay. Now, data can be anything. Data could be your phone calls that you're making. Data is those diary that you put up when you want to go for markets. Data is everywhere, right? Data is everywhere. It could be a phone record. Yeah, these are all data cumulatively where you now try to make sense out of it. That's just the process we call data analysis. So we can say that data analysis or analysis is a process of inspecting, cleansing. Now, my emphasis will be on the cleansing. If you have a good presentation, but your data wasn't clean, there were missing values, there are obvious errors, then I'm sure it will make sense. If you're a researcher, it will make sense to your readers. If you are a business person, it will make sense to your stakeholders. So I strongly believe I'm one of the people that strongly preach cleaning in data, right? If there's any word like that. So it's the process of inspecting, cleansing, transforming your data and modeling your data with the goal, now this is the key word, of discovering useful information. Now for the reason of what? Decision making, to improve mankind. And that's what research is all about, trying to improve mankind by our discoveries, right? So let's now break it down. The process of data analyzing raw data in order to draw out, still making sense, meaningful, actionable insight. Now, the challenge often experienced by some researchers is this issue of insights. Now, we are so distracted by interest or our focus now, and then we narrow our mind to do is good to our objectives, but we close our mind to potential informations that we might get from that study. I think I see this more often in academia research. Now, because of course I told you it's very needful to work with your objectives. Generally, that's a good working principle. But then it's also good to have an open mind when it comes to data, because at the verge of your presentation or analysis, you might discover something else that is obviously off what you had in mind before. So this is just a gentle reminder to us, right? To know that we should be open-minded when it comes to research, when it comes to analyzing a study. Okay. Now, data analysis replaces guesswork without data-driven insights. I think I saw the posts of our tutor for Arrow, Chief Alexander. He made a post. He said, "You're only a guess worker if you don't have data." I think that's not how he put it, but that's the picture he's trying to paint. So you are only a guess worker without a data. So it's data that makes you talk sense, if I can use that word. So, and that's one interesting thing about data analysis. When I began data analysis, one interesting thing about it was that it made me look like a prophet, right? You can actually predict with data what will come out or what will come up in a study, or what you should expect in a future time. And these are interesting. That's why if you should lie to anybody, you shouldn't lie to your doctor, you shouldn't lie to your lawyer, you shouldn't lie to your analyst, right? These three persons you should never lie to them, because they will make discoveries later on that should help you. So never lie to them. So I see researchers trying to maneuver their ways, but it's better to be plain, right? I could conclude on that. We can say that data analysis encompasses the instruction of raw data, the preparation and subsequent analysis of that data, and the storytelling. That's another area that we need to pay attention when it comes to analysis. Okay, so we are moving gradually now to the two SPSS. Now, but let's just talk a little brief on statistics. I'm sure you can see my screen. Let me just go again. Okay, now statistics is a branch of science that deals with collection, organization, analysis of data, and drawing of inference from the sample to the whole population. Now, the reason why we work with samples, especially in academia, is that we can't really, it's not achievable to say you want to analyze a whole population, except in cases where your population is quite small, right? That's why we often work with statistics. Statistics deals with samples from a whole population, a few samples that can actually help us make a wise decision that can cover the entire population, right? That's the need for the statistics, because both the finances and even the human resources might not be enough for you to actually cover a population. So that's why we often go for a statistics. So a statistical method involved in carrying out a study includes planning, designing, collecting data, analyzing, drawing meaningful interpretation, and reporting of research finding. Now, though we are using more of research, I don't want us to have the mindset that SPSS is tailored to just research or academia. No, it's also used in business. It's also used in other diverse areas. Whenever you come to SPSS, you work with variables. Variables are a characteristics that varies from one individual member of the population to another individual. Invariably, what we are saying is that variables are things that changes the differences. Okay, variables could include the height, the weight of individuals, okay, which could convey either a quantitative information, for example, the height and the weight, or a qualitative information. Okay, these are things that we could actually look at. I will have a question for us along the line, but let's go on. Now, there are two kinds of variables. We have quantitative variables and we have qualitative variables. Okay, I think this theory section should be a max of 1 hour so that we can do some practicals. So, quantitative variables can be measured, right? These are things like weight, age, height. But when we talk about qualitative, or sometimes we call it categorical, these ones cannot be literally measured, right? We cannot measure it literally, just like we can measure the eye color. We can measure gender, right? These are all qualitative or categorical variables, unlike the quantitative variable, which can be measured. Okay. Now, types of quantitative variables. Now, this can be, I think it confused a lot of people during our training. So we try to break it down so we can easily understand. Now, discrete has to do with a whole number. When we talk about a whole number, we mean numbers that can be counted, right? Like your full number, there's no decimal. Like your age, there is no decimal. Okay, I just asked you, answer the question I should have asked. Okay, so like your number of children, right, in the house, it cannot be 1.5. Or is there half in the family? I don't think so. So discrete has to do with a whole number. We just have to understand this. This will help us when we go on. And then the continuous has to do with numbers that are not literally whole numbers. Just like decimal points, they have decimal points, just like the weight and height. Okay, so my question now, is H a discrete variable or a continuous variable? Someone please help us. Johnson, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Age is a continuous variable, continuous data.
Okay, interesting. Based on all I explained here, so we think that age is a continuous data. Wow, that's interesting. Anyone else? Emanuela, please go ahead.
Okay, based on your explanation, I think it's a discrete. I think it's discrete. Well, because I'm not seeing when people say I am 36 years, 6 months, or 36 point something. I've not really seen that. So I'm thinking it's discrete. That's like my own thought, but not certain.
Okay, thank you very much. That's interesting.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go on.
Alexander.
Okay.
So your question, it depends on the kind of data presented and the data collector. So some people might ask, what is your age? And then the response might be, okay, I am 17 years plus. Then I can just say, okay, 17, how many months? So 17 years plus 1 or 2 months. So at that point, they can quantify it and say, okay, 17.1 or 0.3 months, depending. And then that is in form of continuous. And then in form of being a discrete variable, as some people can actually take the data in form of age range. For example, maybe 10 to 15, or they can take 20 to 30, or they can just classify older age or younger population. So it depends on how the sample collection is actually done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
I think age can be, from what you said age is discrete, but I think age can be both discrete and continuous. For example, like he said, depending on the collector, if you're collecting data that involves pediatric patients, we have in months, and when you're collecting data, you can't have some of them be in years and some be in months. So you might have to convert that to years, which is going to be point something, 0 point something. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good attempt. All right, let's go to PowerPoint. Okay, now age as a last birthday is discrete. but age as of today is continuous. Now, reason is just like Alex said, if you are asked your age now, you could say 30 and 6 months, and that's a continuous variable. That's why we often always have in our presentation the mean and standard deviation of the age. And so we often see researchers often going to collect age range from the participants or respondents, but based on practice, on best practices, I believe it's best to go for the age, right? Allow the analyst to now create the age brackets or age groups. That will be much more beneficial to the research than collecting age brackets yourself. It will hinder the accurate measurement of the average age of those sample or the population size. All right, so that's the importance of trying to collect the age and not the age group. Okay, so let's go ahead. Variables. Now, this is just a demonstration. We have the qualitative, we have the quantitative, we have the ordinal, we have the discrete, we have the continuous. Okay, we've talked about the discrete, talked about the continuous. Okay, ordinal has to do with order, right? A data that has to do with order. Okay, for instance, excellent, good, average, poor. There's an order there, right? So these are ordinal data. Another one could be the Likert scales, which could be strongly agreed, and the rest of it. These are ordinal data. Okay. All right. So just a quick run through it. A nominal data, a nominal variable is one that describes a name. Now, we will appreciate this when we go into the software because there are columns that represent this. So sex and types of occupation are also examples of nominal data. Then ordinal, we have, like I said, good, better, just that order. If there is a natural ordering, then we can say that that is an ordinal data. Okay. Now, in our next live exhibition, which we believe will be monthly, we'll be going deeper on data cleaning and other aspects. Okay, so we will not cover, for those who were asking how we cover SPSS in 1 hour 30 minutes, of course, it's impossible. So we'll cover some basics that will give a lot of people an interest in research analytics. And that way, I think most people, sincerely, our aim in all these webinars is to help people that can do their research and do their studies on their own without literally giving out their research. It's surprising that even higher still give up their work to be written, not necessarily because they can't, but because they weren't exposed to all these concepts. So it's just something that we want people to begin to do their research on their own, especially Nigerians. I'm sorry I had to use this. Now, if you're in Nigeria, I'm sure you should know by now, if you're towards maybe you're running an MSc program or an undergrad program or a PhD program, and you want to source out your research to be written for you. Literally, for an undergrad now, it's around 94,000 if you're charged cheap. And that's so much. And most times, these students do pay because not necessarily they have the money, but because they don't know what to do. So, for this, just a way to stir up the minds of people to gain interest in this. Okay? So, let's go on. Now, there are analytical processes. Now, the goal is to identify trends, relationships within a data in order to answer your research questions. This can be achieved by first, like we said, cleaning. This is still part of the cleaning, sorting and filtering, organizing data. These are all cleaning procedures. So we have the formatting, adjusting the data points for names. These are all things. These are checklists. We call them checklists in our trainings that people must follow in order to say that your data is good for analysis or set for analysis. And then we talked about transforming your data using either tables or graphs. Okay, so we're gradually entering into SPSS interface. Okay. Now, when you open an SPSS software, the variable view and the data view. Okay, in that variable view, you will have the name, the label, the width, the decimals, the values, the missing values, align measure. But we just want to describe some of them so that as we move into the software, it will be easier for us to flow. Just where you add the unique identity of the individual, right? It helps to sort the data. Okay, if there is no name, it will be hard to identify that particular respondent. Okay, peradventure, you want to give a tailored recommendation for that person based on your analysis. That's why, of course, you use a unique ID and not literally the respondent's name because of privacy. Remember, you told them that their data will be used anonymously. So this is more like an extra name that gives beauty, right, to your interface. The only difference is that in name, you can't add a species, right? You can't add spaces in between. But in label, you can extensively explain what that column is all about or analysis is all about. Okay, so let's go on. Then those are the important ones that we need to note. Measures, we'll still talk about them when we go into the software. Then we'll have the data view. These are where we now enter the data, either manually or importing using a CSV or Excel format. So SPSS allows CSV, allows SQL as well, allows Excel format. Okay, whichever one your data came in form of. There are basic data manipulation. Now, I just want to introduce this here. We will not go deep on it. Okay. First of all, when you get your data, it's always best to make a copy. Reason is this: if you make or edit that data, and sometime in the process, you found out that you deleted the wrong or a necessary item, you can't go back to the subject, or probably you bleeded someone, right? Maybe you did a practical work that involves bleeding a patient. You later the patient, oh, I lost the value. Can I take your blood again and run the samples again? It's not possible. So always make a copy of your data. These are also important for us to know: descriptive statistics, and inferential statistics. These are things that we should be conversant with as research analysts. When you open your SPSS, this data now was imported from an Excel format. Okay, let's just go through the Excel file. Data that was trying to assess the prevalence of certain disease in a population, in a particular location. Okay, now the data that was collected ranged from 2020, 2021, 2023. Okay, so 3 years was collected. Now, we've already coded this data. These were the 3 years that were collected. We wanted to assess the prevalence of disease across these years, which disease were most prevalent in this particular population within this year, 2021, 2022, 2023. Now, we already coded that whenever we see male, we code them as 2. Whenever we see males, we code them as 1. Whenever we see females, we code them as 2. This is based on the questionnaire that was shared. I didn't literally want to show all those parts. But there's something we call coding. Not literally writing big codes. So what is what I mean? Let me try to zoom in. So literally, while coding this document into Excel, because it's best to import coded values. And what I mean by coded values, I mean numerical values, right, into Excel before doing analysis. It's very important because it will reduce the errors that SPSS will pop up along the line. So wherever we see females as 1, as 2, wherever we see males, we code that as 1. So literally that's what we did in this gender column. For the departments, there are about 9 departments here. And we coded each of them from 1 to the 9th one. The same thing, there were about 12 months here. Yeah, so we coded them from 1 to 12. Same thing for the disease. We read the data collectors are counted for about 9 to 10 diseases, which were all coded before it was imported into SPSS. So this is what I was showing. Okay. Now, if you try to add a space, departments, okay, and click on enter, SPSS will tell you, literally you can't do that. Name variable contains illegal character. So in name column, you're not permitted to add spaces, or not in label. In label, you are at liberty to add whatever you want to add. Explain very well in details what this name means, right? So let's go ahead. Departments, and then we have month and disease. Okay. Okay. Now these are the 4 or 5 or 6 columns that we saw in Excel. Now this is literally a variable view. Now going to the data view, you see that the column headers here is the row headers in variable view. The column headers in data view is the row headers in the variable view. So that's how SPSS works. It's like SPSS, it's like Excel, just a little differences. Okay, so but now we can easily enter those data. Let's take, for instance, we have that the first person had an ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we also see that, let's assume that we have the first age. So we are populating our data now manually. Okay. Okay. Gender. Remember, we're using the code. We're using 1 for male, 2 for female. Just randomly. Departments, let's just pick like 4 departments. Okay, and months, still the same thing. Let's pick few months. February, March, October, August, and May. Okay. Now, based on also our coding, we also want to give a code for our diseases. So 1 8. So this all represents a particular disease. Now, literally, if you run this analysis like this, you won't be getting something understandable. If someone should open the results, they won't really understand, right? So it's important to actually describe to SPSS what you mean, okay? So this is where we now describe. We are trying to, remember I said earlier that in labels, you can add spaces and literally anything you want, okay? So we can write this in full, respondent identity, identification,